One of the most powerful tools that I use in my shop actually isn't inside of my shop, it's on my computer. It is Fusion 360, which is the 3D modeling program that I use to do pretty much all of my really big builds. And in this video, we're gonna walk through the full process on how to make a coffee table in Fusion 360. All right, welcome back. I'm Brandon, and this is the Make or Break shop, where in order to make things, we've got to break a few things along the way because mistakes are always part of the process. Now, we know mistakes are gonna happen, but what I find is using digital tools help you make those mistakes when it doesn't really cost you money, especially in material and sometimes even time. So you might be familiar with SketchUp or some other 3D modeling tools, but they're great aids just to help you figure out what you're going to build. In my case, I really love using Fusion 360 and actually compare it to SketchUp and why I use it over it in this video right there. But we're gonna get into making this coffee table that I found online and turn it into a digital model like this. If you guys want to download the model yourself so you can be looking at it as we're going, there's links right down below in the description. All right, so we are going to do a quick design inside of Fusion 360. We're going to be making this coffee table for the most part. We're actually going to add a divider. These legs are going to be straight, and then we're going to do dovetails for the attachment, and then we're going to do a sliding dovetail in the middle. We're going to jump over into Fusion. This is actually what we're going to make right here, but we're going to recreate it. So inside of Fusion, and the way this works, these are all of your projects. And so this is kind of like a folder. So I'm already going to go into my coffee table folder. I'm going to do new design. All right. So if this is your very first time in this environment, some quick things to kind of get around. First off, if yours looks different than mine, your display settings are down here. So you can kind of adjust all of these. I'll just scroll through real quick so you can see if any of yours are different. To get around, I'm using a 3-button mouse. First off, zoom is your scroll wheel. And if you hold down the scroll wheel, that is kind of your pan. And then if you hold shift and then your scroll wheel, it's going to bring up this orbit. And I always have it on constrained orbit because it works a lot better. Also, hopefully all the keys are showing up down here at the bottom as we go, and I type a bunch of stuff in. Another cool thing is this little guy right here. This is basically you can move your views around. This is like a little tiny workspace. If you hit home, if you get confused, if something gets super messed up and you have no idea where you are, just hit home. You're going to get back to that standard view. And then it's also nice if you want to do a straight up top view. And then if you want to do a front, etc. It's super nice to work with that. So the biggest difference between Fusion and SketchUp is how you approach it kind of from the beginning. You want to think of everything as sketches where you're going to constrain everything. And then also the big thing is you can have parameters, and these are going to be things that we're going to call out as we go. So these are just like overall dimensions and things that maybe you want to adjust on the fly as we're going. So a couple things that I know I'm going to want is an overall height. First off, we're going to do a 16 inches. And there's a little plus right there. Sometimes it's hard to see. We're going to go overall width. You can't have a space in this, and I just capitalize every word. It's just the way I do it. The width is the shorter distance for me, so length is going to be the length, how long something is, and the width is going to be how wide something is. And then we're going to make this, let's make this 2 feet. It's 24 inches. And then for the overall length, this is going to be, let's call this 48. Cool. A couple other things that we are going to keep track of. One is the height of the legs. So again, if we switch over to our pictures, basically, what is this distance from the bottom to the top? Leg height. And what's cool is not only can you type in actual numbers, but these are now formulas like you could use in Excel. So we just declared this value, so we can actually use that overall height. We're going to take the overall height. We're going to make the box, so kind of the middle point. Let's start out. Let's say that whole thing from here to here is like 6 inches. That's going to give us 10. Another good one to do is just your stock. So I usually do plywood. I'll do just material, I guess, thickness. We're going to call this 3/4 of an inch. And then the last thing that I want to do, I want the leg diameter. These are going to taper. So this is going to be the diameter at the bottom. We're going to make it pretty small, so we're going to make it an inch. Now you're probably like, man, none of those make sense. Mine's totally different. That's the point. You can adjust this after we're completely done with everything, which makes this really great if you kind of have a stock design that you do for most things, whether it's for you or for clients. And then you can just throw in the dimensions and everything gets repopulated, which is amazing. All right, now let's actually get into making things. We're going to start out with a sketch. Also, kind of the way this works, this is your master. You're going to see in a minute, we're going to create components that are going to drop down here, but our origin is inside of this folder. This is all of our XYZ. You can turn all this, we can turn all of that on and you can see it. Those are our planes and those are the points. So we're actually going to keep it off for now. And then up here under create, there is create sketch, and we want it to be on the bottom basically. And then we are going to do R for rectangle. This is going to give us a 2-point rectangle, or you can click it right there. We're going to start at the origin, and as you like go around, it's going to lock to stuff. So like right here, it's locked to this axis. Now it's locked to this one, but now this is locked to the origin, and that's going to get into doing constrained sketches here in a second. So you can see what's cool about this is now you can adjust this. But that also means it's not constrained. So we want everything on here to be black when we're done with it. It is constrained this way, and so there's a bunch of different ways you can do it. So this symbol is this horizontal vertical guy. What that means is this and this are horizontal to each other, as well as this and this. And then if you click right here, you can see that it is constrained both this one and this one to the origin. If you ever want to delete these constraints, you can right-click, delete, and then you can see now that is no longer horizontally constrained. But if we do want to do it, click it again, and now it is constrained. This is a super easy way kind of to see what you want to constrain. All right, now this is a top-down look. So this is going to be our overall width. So to do this, we're going to hit D. That's going to sketch dimension. This is our overall length. Zoom out. And then this is going to be our overall width. All right, and so this is basically the top of the coffee table, as well as the bottom of the coffee table. Then the other thing we want to put on here is the leg. So the leg is going to be a circle. As of right now, it doesn't matter where it's at. And so you can see that's not constrained. So we're going to select it with the D and then pull it out. And this is going to be our leg diameter, is that 1 inch. So I'm hitting escape, and that is getting me out of the constrained dimension. What we want to do is give basically the distance off of the edge. So I could make this a parameter, but really, regardless of the size of this, I want this to be, let's call it, I don't know, let's see, 4 inches. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, we'll go with 4 inches. I think that works. We're not going to do the other legs. There's a couple of features you could use. You can mirror as well as you can do a rectangular pattern, but we're actually going to mirror the finished body. And so that's so that we can adjust other elements, and it's going to populate to everything else. So this sketch is done. You can see everything is black. You can't move anything around. We are good to go. So we're going to start off with the leg. To do that, you want to create a new component. So kind of the best practices with Fusion is you always want to make something new with a new component. And in terms of woodworking, if this is going to be a different piece that you're going to cut and have to assemble, like if this is going to get screwed to something else or glued to something else, if this is a different piece of wood, that's a different component. So our leg is a different component than everything else. This is kind of the master assembly, and this right here, this makes it active. So anything that you do now applies to the whole assembly, but we are just going to be messing with the leg. So we're gonna go to that. You can also right click it and, actually you can right click it and hit activate, but we're already on it. So now we are going to make our leg. Our panel has changed up. So this is like contextual depending on what you are working on. Here's your create and your modify. This is what you're gonna be in mostly. Again, modify, that is where you found the physical parameters. All right, so we are going to extrude. You can also see the keyboard shortcut is E. And one nice thing about Fusion 2 is it does a pretty good job kind of explaining what things are gonna do. And then it will kind of walk you through the process. So E for extrude, we're going to select this guy. It's blue, so now that we know that it's selected, and just to give us some perspective, you can see this arrow. So you can either pull it up or down. So you can see positive 5.5 to a negative 10. But we already know this. This is our leg height, which is 10 inches. You can kind of see it in there. And so as of right now, we're going to let this be a new body inside of this leg component. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. And now we've got this created. But we actually want these to taper. So you saw there was a feature as we were going through the options that was taper, but this was already made. What's also nice about Fusion is instead of having to delete it and redo it, if you just right click down here, this is going to be our entire timeline of everything we make. Right click, hit edit feature. This brings us right back to what we just did. Let's make a taper angle of, whoa, that's way too big. 8, 5, let's go 3. Cool. And now we have a slightly tapered leg. Usually once you're done with a sketch or you extrude, it's going to hide it. And so you'll have to go back in and get it back. All right, so we're going to do new component. This is bottom. E for extrude. Thickness. And you can see that we've got that there. But this is now attached if we make this active. This is like on the bottom. That's not what we want. We want it up there. So how do we move it? If we go back to what we just made, edit that feature, you can see there's some other options over here. So start is where we actually want to start this piece from. So I just did from object. We want this top piece right there. And you can see now it's going to the top. But I can also see that I've got that circle in there because I didn't select it. So you can go up to the profiles that we want, select that, and that's going to fix it. New body. Cool. Now this is created. Cool. Keyboard shortcut is if you select something, you hit V. That's going to hide that component. So next up is we're going to make the walls, and then we're going to make the top. To do the walls, we'll actually go back to this sketch. This is something we could have just done a second ago. I just double clicked it. I'm gonna hit R for rectangle. We're gonna make them. So you can see this is right here. This is locked on. If for whatever reason, I just did it like this. So I'm making this like side wall. And you need to get it actually back on. There is this awesome coincident. So I'm gonna hit this, I'm gonna hit this. It's gonna connect them. Same with this. Now I just need to dimension this guy, thickness, cool. So I just want to do one of the walls because we're going to mirror a bunch of other features that we make here in a second. All right, new component. This is going to be, let's call it wall. And we're going to extrude. Again, we're going to start from an object, and this time it's going to be from the top of this guy. It's kind of hard to see, but it is highlighting it. And then we're going to go up. Okay, so we could either do this as a parameter, or we can just do it right here. So this distance is going to be our height minus our leg height. And then since it's in between, it's going to be minus 2 times our thickness. 4.5. Awesome. That's another cool part about Fusion. It's going to do the math for you, so you don't have to like measure stuff and figure all that out. So we've got that there. So now that we've got our basic pieces put together, what we're going to do is starting to mirror things. And to do that, you're going to use these construction planes. And we basically need to have one going right through the middle here, and then going through the middle here, which is really easy with the mid plane. Again, I'm on the top level assembly. And then you can see this construction plane gets made. And this, if you see that blue guy right there, if you click it and pull it up, you can adjust how big they are. And this is literally just to make it easier for you. This doesn't affect your final design or anything. And we're going to do the same thing. So the first thing that we are going to mirror legs to start out. So if I go create, again, I'm at the top level assembly. I go mirror, and then I'm clicking my leg. I want to mirror it. I got the object, now the mirror plane. It's going to be this guy. So you can see it's over there. And then we're going to do it one more time. If you right click, it's going to bring up this really cool menu where you can customize all this kind of stuff, but it also brings up your last thing that you did. So I'm going to go repeat mirror. This time we're selecting two things, and we're going across this plane. Well, no. So, oh, there we go. All right. Cool. Now, all of that is done. So now that we've got those mirrored, I'm going to turn this construction plane off. Another cool feature about this timeline is you can go back in time, make edits, and then pull the timeline back forward, and it populates everything forward. So what I mean is right now, let's say I want to make a fillet. So I want to round this over right here at the bottom. If you hit F, or you go to modify, or actually it's right here, fillet. Hit F, fillet, and you're going to go up like this. There's ways to make these as actual copies. You literally could copy and paste it, and that would change everything. But I did it a little bit different. So if I wanted this to apply to everything else, what I need to do is back this up in time till before they were made. And now I do the fillet. Let's do an 1/8 inch fillet. Pull this back forward. And it applies to all of that, which is super handy. We've got our legs, and just to make it clean, we're going to label them. So this is going to be front left. So now we're going to create our top piece. One option would be if you hit M, and that's going to bring up this move copy. We could select this, and then we could do create a copy, and then we could pull it up, and then we could actually place it. Here, I'll show you actually how we do that. And then we would do M again, selecting this entire, make sure component is selected. We're going to do a point to point. And so our first point is going to be this guy, and our next point is here. I didn't have the component selected. So make sure you have it selected. Then first point here, second point here, and you would capture that position so it stays. So that is one option, but what I find sometimes is when I scale these things later, that doesn't really lock the position that well. So instead, let's delete that. What we're going to do is mirror again, is usually the safest thing. So we're going to mirror this up. So we need another construction plane. Again, I'm on this guy. So we have these two, but we really need one cutting the middle of this. So we are going to do another midpoint, mid-plane. And this, let me turn the bottom off. It's going to be between here and here. Okay. And so we've got this guy. So now, if we go and create and mirror along this plane, and then you can see it's right up there. Cool. So now we are working with multiple components, and the only one we have left is this guy over here. So we've already got those construction planes made. Again, we're going to go to mirror. We're going to select this wall, and we're going to go around this. Cool. So that is our overall shape. So we're going to go ahead and make a divider here as well. As with everything, you really can make things a bunch of different ways. We could go back to the original sketch and then make a divider in the middle, then pull that up. But what we're going to do, since you haven't seen it, is we're going to do it all within a new component. So we're going to call it the divider. I'm gonna go sketch. So you can see I'm selecting the front face, and now I'm on the front face, and you can draw here. So we could do this. Again, this is going to be the thickness. Really, when you're drawing, like, you can just go ahead and attach stuff. So it's already going to do these constraints that I'm going to do here in a minute. So you can see that's already coincident. But I just do that just in case you missed that and you need to connect it. Now we are going to make a construction line. So just like a construction plane, we can do something called a construction line. L for line, and then hit X, and this is construction. And this is basically just a dotted line. And I'm going to just have it going at a 90-degree angle is what I am shooting for. And then I want this to be in the very center, so we can use the symmetry here, here, and here. Now it's in the center. And now what this means is I can do the symmetry again between here, here, and here. Awesome, now that's attached. All right, so now I'm going to use parallel to get this here. Get that there. Finish the sketch. So you see that dotted line if I turn. So these dotted lines that are brought in, those are projections from the things that we've done before. Sometimes it does it automatically, but it is super helpful. And I'll show you actually how to make it if, for whatever reason, it decided not to do that. So I'm going ahead and deleting those. And so again, you can see this is now not attached. So if you hit P, now we're on project, and then click and hit OK. Now you've got that blue line right there, which we could make a construction line. We can make it whatever we want. But let's say I want to bring this top one in as well. Hit P, hit OK. And now we've got those in there. So if we hide all this again, you can see that is actually part of the sketch as a projection, which we can use to constrain our sketches. All right, so we're going to finish the sketch. Now, all right, so we've got the sketch done, and now what we're going to do is extrude this across. Oh, so yeah, I forgot to put that line right there. I don't want it to go, if we go back into here. So I don't want it to cut through. So let's go back into that sketch real quick and add one more line. All right, and then here you can see what I was talking about. It's not attaching when I'm trying to do it from here. So I would do the project. Okay, now I've got that line in there. Finish the sketch. And so with that line, I can now go across. Then we're going to extrude it. You can go like this. You can select this here, which is great, but you can see the distance is still an actual number. So if we were to go and adjust this for the future, it would still keep it at 24 inches. It wouldn't lock it to whatever the new distance is going to be. So instead of doing that, what you want to do is go to Object. Now we select it, and it's going, whatever that crazy thing means, basically to the back side. And we hit OK. And we are good with the divider. Cool. So now we've got all this made. We need to actually do the joinery. So let's start off. We're going to do tenons for the legs. So like I said before, we want this to apply to all the legs. So we're actually going to back this up to when it was just this leg, and now go into it and create the joinery for it. So this is selected, and we're going to make a new sketch. And then I'm going to take the bottom actually off so I can get to here. We're going to make it a circle, and then we'll make it, I don't know, an inch. It's really big actually. Let's make it 0.75. There we go. I was about to make it 75 inches. And then now we're going to turn the bottom back on. Actually, we're going to hit extrude. Now we're going to turn the bottom back on. And just like before, we are going to do to an object. So to this top piece right there. and it is going to join. So now we turn everything back on, go forward, and you can see if we hide this, that populated to those other ones. That's great, but if we turn the legs off, we've got the holes that aren't in the actual bottom piece. So to do that, and so this is actually another really nice piece about Fusion versus SketchUp. So with SketchUp, you'd have to go in, draw the circles, make the holes, all that kind of stuff. But there's this really cool feature called Combine, which is right here. Again, I'm on the master assembly. Go to Combine, and then you want to collect your target body. This is what is going to be adjusted. And then tool bodies, this is what is going to be subtracted from it or added to it. So you can do a couple different things over here, or intersect, all that kind of stuff. Right now, it's treating this literally as a tool body. So these actually won't be here. And sometimes this isn't selected. So if I did that, we've got the holes, but now our legs are gone. So if you go Edit Feature, you just want to make sure that's always selected so you keep it. Then if we take these out, you can see that now we've got our holes for the bottom. All right, so that's great, but maybe you want to be real exact, and you're like, that's awesome, but I want to have a little bit of a tolerance in right here. So you can go to Modify, and then you go Offset Face, and then make sure you're going negative, and let's say we make it 32nd of an inch. And that will offset it. But, so you can see that is good to go, but we actually want that to apply to all of these. But we're actually just gonna redo that. Something weird is happening. We're gonna turn the legs back off. We're gonna go to Offset Face, and we're gonna do negative 32nd of an inch. Then we turn all those back on, and you can see that we have that gap right in there. Cool. So the legs are pretty much done. Now what we can do is go on to the side. All right, so I actually had to drill in. The body was turned off for the top. All right, so now we are going to make our actual dovetails for these side pieces. So I'm gonna go into this guy, make it my active component. We're gonna do a new sketch on top of it, and then we're gonna start to work on our dovetails. This is just kind of an easier way, at least for me. You can draw out the shape that you're looking for, and then start constraining it outside. So the first thing I wanna do is these need to be equal in length. And as always, if you start just playing around with it, you can kind of see what else you still need to do. We're going to do symmetry on this. So we're going to do a construction line where we have the symmetry. And then all that's still going kind of crazy. We're going to go ahead and bring it on so I can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. So we are going to do another construction line, but first I want to project, let me just grab this entire, now we have got it. And then we are going to, and actually we're just going to turn the body off for now so I can see what I'm doing. And we want to grab this, and that is the top. We also want to use that in the sketch as well. So we want to, first off, this is going to be a through dovetail. So this needs to be collinear, as well as this needs to be coincident. And you can see that these still will adjust. So we need to add a couple more dimensions. First is going to be our overall width of the dovetail. Let's make it an inch for now. And then we need our angle, which is going to be, let's say 80 degrees. All right, now this is still moving along, and we want to put this in the very center. So we're going to do construction line. I'm going to go all the way through, make sure it's parallel. And then we're gonna do symmetry from the sides. Then we're just gonna line up this guy to this guy. All right, so actually for whatever reason, the dimensions got turned off for me for a second. And so what I had to do was back out from the sketch and then right click on the sketch and then go show dimensions. And so now it's back on. But now that we've got this made, what we need to do is duplicate this down the sides. And so we're going to use a new guy called rectangular pattern. You first want to select everything that you want to make a pattern of. And then we are going to do it by the extent. And so if you guys remember, this is our total, or this is our width, right? Yeah, overall width divided by 2. And then we need to subtract that from 0.5, right? Because that's half of this guy. So if we click back into there, actually, we want to back that out a little bit more. So it's a little bit closer to the edge. Okay, I like that. But then obviously we want more than just 3. And so we want it to go in both directions. So we're going to do symmetric. And now we only have 3. But if we keep it odd, you can see we're just adding these on. We're going to go, let's go with a 9. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, we'll say that's enough. Cool. And then to finish this guy off, actually everything is in there that we need because we projected all that stuff. So let's turn our wall back on. And what we're going to do is extrude. It's going to join. Again, we want to do to object just in case we change the thickness later. And you can see that is joined. Now we want that on the top and the bottom. So another awesome thing you can do is not only can you mirror components or bodies, but you can mirror features. So what that means is if we go back in here, we go create and we go mirror, actually select feature. And so this is what we just did. So then we're going to do it across here. And then you can see that it is popping up right down there. All right, we're gonna turn the construction planes off and, oh, I actually forgot. So I should have been making all of that before I mirrored this. So not super hard to fix that. We're just going to redo it, create, mirror. It's already selected. We got our plane, turn these back on. And there we go. So just like before, now that we've got this made, we need to actually subtract that from this. Again, we're going to use the combine feature, which makes this really fast. This is going to be, you can select multiple tool bodies, keep the tools, cut it, and then you can see that that is cut out. So do the same thing with this and our tool bodies. Keep the tools. And now, if we take both of those out, you can see that we have them there. Then last but not least, let's go back into our divider. We're going to make this a sliding dovetail. So we're going to do a sketch on top of it. Again, we're going to make a dovetail. This, I'm going to go ahead and attach it. We're going to project those lines. And then we need to do a construction line right here in the middle. So let's have symmetry around the center line. And then we're going to make this a function of the thickness. So let's say this is material thickness minus 1/4 of an inch. And then the height is going to be the material thickness divided by 2. All right, so then we need to set our angle at 80 degrees. And then this sketch is done. So just like we did before, now we are still inside of the divider. We're going to extrude this and then make sure that we extrude this to an object. We're going to join it. And then just like we did before, we are going to mirror that feature. So we're going to select this guy, turn the construction lines back on. And then the plane that we need, I think is right. There it is. Cool. And now that is created. And then last but not least, we need to go in and combine those guys. All right, so now you can see we've got the slots for the dovetail. Again, if you want to do a tolerance, you just go into that offset face. And then we can make it -1/32. And then you've got your tolerance in there. But for me, we're just going to keep it flush. All right, cool. So that is pretty much the assembly of this guy. And now what is great and why I love Fusion, you know what, but I really want this thing to be a little bit longer. It doesn't need to be 48 inches. It really needs to be 55 inches. So you do that. And the thing expands. Everything updates. Everything's in the middle. That's what makes this thing absolutely. Now, if you remember, the width is going to be a little bit different. Since we typed in just a hard number for the dovetails, the spacing is going to get kind of crazy. So what you could do, if we're making something massive like this, is go back into this feature, which is down over here. You edit the sketch, you jump in here, and then you can increase this number to 15 maybe. Then you finish it. So then what you would have to do is actually go into this and make sure these are selected, since these are new bodies. That's going to join, take it back here, and then you can see that goes to everything else. Now, I don't want that, so let's back it up real quick. There are ways where you can actually have that as a formula, but we really don't want to get into all that here. And again, if we want to do the overall height, maybe we want to make it 24 inches. And then another cool feature is if this inspect, you hit measure. Let's say we want to measure from here all the way down here. And then you can make sure your XYZ delta's on, and you can see that's right at that 24 inches if you wanted to double check you did everything right. So all of this stuff you can just adjust on the fly, which is wild. Maybe we actually wanted this box to be bigger. To do that, we would make this number larger. And it's just like that. You could even come afterwards and instead, and maybe you want to make this even easier and say box height. And we want to make this 8. Then what you could go do in here is change this to box height. Then all you have to do is adjust this guy. And you can adjust all this on the fly. If you have a ton of parameters that you're working with, and there's only a couple that you want to play with, you can actually star them, make favorites. So now for the very last part of this, and this is just to make it look a little bit nicer, we're going to go into the appearance. So I just hit A. That's going to bring up the appearance menu. And then for wood, I find this wood solid down here. Does a pretty good job. And we're going to make this finished. And we're going to make this semi-gloss walnut. You got to download it, which is weird. But then you can just drop it onto components. And you want to make sure you have the component selected. So then it's going to go all the way around it. So I'm going to say all of this is going to be walnut. And then maybe we make our legs curly maple. And there you have it. So we're not gonna get into doing a rendering in this video, but you can do some pretty high quality renders directly in Fusion 360. If you guys are interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments and I can make a video specifically for that. So outside of the computer, I actually make physical things inside of the shop, and this is one of my favorite builds, and I'll see you there in just 1 second. And until next time, go make or break something in your shop. See you guys.